All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Going to be getting into my week 9 early bets here for prize picks and underdog. Let's go ahead and get into it. So let's go ahead and just start off with what the board is calling out to us. And these are a lot of bets that I actually don't really like any of these. And so this is kind of honestly the nice part about the cheat sheet is that maybe if you were thinking about betting on Jake Ferguson, which I will be, you guys will see in a second, but maybe we pause a little bit. But Jameis Winston, Rico Dowdle, Cole Kmet, where, Vegas is kind of saying those guys could actually struggle this week. Maybe just in general, if you were favoring some of the over bets, maybe you're a little bit more hesitant to do that. But yeah, again, I don't really like any of these ones, these top 5. At the same time, I don't want to go against the data too much, but at the same time, I'm not going to be going out of my way to target these. These are all basically saying, and this happens a bunch, is that prize picks is overvaluing the likelihood of those players to basically score a touchdown. Obviously, touchdowns are really going to be the biggest difference maker between a player getting their over fantasy score or not getting their over fantasy score. Now, let's just talk through a couple of these. Like, can we see a path where Cole Kmet is not able to get his over fantasy score? Maybe Caleb Williams continues to struggle throwing the football. Really, you look at it, guys, Caleb Williams has had 2 good games against 2 of the worst pass defenses in the league, in which he was able to have a lot of time to throw the football. Other games, he's looked bad. And so, yeah, I could see that happening. Rico Dowdle, is he going to have a big workload? There's kind of some weird stuff going on around him getting that sickness right before lineup lock or game time last week. I would assume he's going to be good to go. I'm going to assume he's going to be the RB1. And I could see a situation where they look at the film last week, we're like, all right, yep, we definitely need to give Rico 60% of the work here. And he actually gets involved in that passing game a decent amount. I could definitely see that happening. Jameis Winston, got away with a lot of passes that he shouldn't have last week. A lot of people are going to be excited about his overs going against the Chargers, who are a more difficult defense. In a game that should feature a game script that's very run heavy, limit the mistakes on both sides for both teams. I could see that happening. Jake Ferguson's the one where I struggle a little bit. I know Atlanta's, kind of a middle of the road defense. I struggle with that one. That one I struggle with. And then Tyreek Hill as well. I kind of assume he's going to have a good game as well. And then these other ones, obviously tight lines, but we're under 54%, so don't exactly need to go out of our way to target those. And then we go ahead and get into underdog right now, guys. Again, I like to start out with the plus EV bets that we are getting so that if you guys agree with these, you guys can go out of your way to target them. So we got Daniel Carlson to make 2 field goals. If you guys like that, that is a 54% likely to hit. And then we got Cardi basically to not hit 2 field goals, but your betting is under kicking points of 7.5. That's not exactly the best EV bet, but not terrible. Okay, so we kind of get the picture there. I want to talk about some of the bets that I really like this week. And the first one's going to be looking at J.K. Dobbins to get over 2.5 receptions. And if you look at it, guys, J.K. Dobbins has had this over basically in every single game except for over the last 5, except for one game against Denver, which is obviously a very difficult matchup. Now, yes, Cleveland is a difficult matchup as well. I get that. But Pittsburgh is, KC is, New Orleans, kind of a tougher matchup as well. The thing with J.K. Dobbins is he clearly has been their top running back, and he's getting more work as well. And the thing I like about it as well, it's like, I wouldn't say that all of his receptions are like design play receptions where I like to target that personally, where we know we're going to have a good baseline to get the over. But Justin Herbert is certainly looking his way a bunch. And if we look at the snap counts from J.K. Dobbins last week, he had 82% of the snaps last week, which to me, very big. If that's a sign of things to continue, that's pretty huge. Because even if he gets like 70% of the snaps, that's still going to be good enough for him to get this over. So I like that aspect of this. So now I'm going to jump in. Oh, got to zoom out a little bit here. Now I'm going to jump into more just the traditional bets, because these are all going to be bets where they're not necessarily like plus EV bets where you're betting them on prize picks or underdog to gain a long-term edge. These are ones where I personally feel like we are gaining an edge on prize picks or underdog. And you guys will be able to see as I go through these, whether or not they're, favored to get the over, whether or not they're going to be good bets on prize picks or underdog, or whether they're going to be good bets for traditional sports books, maybe Fliff or Sleeper if you guys are someone that plays on those sites. And so one bet that I like is actually going to be Trevor Lawrence to get his over passing yards. And we can see some sites are having somewhat different lines. Really, some of the better lines is going to be on DraftKings, Bet Online, and Hard Rock Bet. Really, they're all about minus 115. These are all going to be pretty good bets here. And the reason why I like this one with Trevor Lawrence is just the simple fact that he has been playing better recently. I know he's potentially going to be without Brian Thomas Jr. Gabe Davis is seemingly going to be good to go. And Christian Kirk is gone. I don't think there's a big drop-off between Kirk and Parker Washington, at least with how they've been used this year, talent-wise probably. Brian Thomas Jr., at times I almost felt like they were trying too hard to get him involved. And so, yes, obviously those players being injured and being banged up is not good for Trevor Lawrence, but at the same time, Evan Ingram's going to be good to go. You're subbing Parker Washington there. I don't know if it's that big of a drop-off, and you get a good matchup going against Philly, a matchup that he should at least be able to get to 214 passing yards, which is pretty good, I would say there. And so the projection data is giving him about 230. And so just across the board, I feel like this is a good bet for us. And so I like it, really wherever you're getting the lines here, I feel good about that. But if we look at it, guys, to me, this is specifically a better bet on PrizePicks, where they only had the line at 210.5. Whereas the average sportsbook line has this at 213. So I do think that this is a slightly better bet for us to be using on PrizePicks. So I'm happy to do that there. And so another one that I don't mind is actually like Patrick Mahomes to get his over passing yards. There's not really a specific site advantage that we're going to get here. The average line is about 242.5. Basically a 50-50 for him. You know, he has been forced to have to throw the football more, basically. And he's Patrick Mahomes. He's looked good, but getting Travis Kelce more involved, Xavier Worthy has been okay, but getting DeAndre Hopkins there, I think is pretty big for him. And we're just seeing them know that they have to throw the football a little bit more. And so he gets a pretty good matchup, obviously, going against Tampa Bay. And so it is kind of crazy. Like, we get, when comparing Patrick Mahomes, who people like consider the best quarterback in the league, against the worst pass defense, and his line that we're getting is 30 yards lower than what the defense gives up on average. That's pretty crazy to me. And so I'm just willing to bet on Patrick Mahomes to continue to play well. I mean, he's gotten this over 3 out of the last 4 games. When Isaiah Pacheco got injured, they've really had to put an emphasis on Patrick Mahomes having to throw the football a little bit more. And maybe it's tight, but at the same time, you look at some of these matchups, not really great matchups. And now he finally gets a great matchup. I do expect him to have a good game. Maybe the concern is that maybe Kareem Hunt is able to get going pretty well against Tampa Bay, who is a poor pass defense. So what's nice about those 2 first bets is that we did have Vegas lines to be able to really see if we're getting an edge on those or not, or where we should be betting them. This one right here, Theo Johnson to get over 17.5 receiving yards. We're not getting Vegas data on just yet. I do like this over, though. He's someone that got the over last week simply because Pittsburgh did not go for it on 4th down to kill the game, because they obviously thought that Giants were a bad offense and they weren't too worried about that. He gets it then on the last drive, but he still played 90+% of the snaps, which to me is huge. And he gets a decent matchup there, again, going against a pretty poor pass defense. Now, they've been better recently, obviously going against Caleb Williams, who just not good under pressure just yet, and adjusting to the pressure, with calls and audibles. And so if he's still playing that many snaps, I think he has a good chance to get this over. This really just requires him to get 2 receptions. So more just betting on the snaps. I really don't mind that. And just real quickly, guys, quick apology. I had the passing yards prop still on. So when I was sorting by Theo Johnson, we weren't able to see that. But interestingly enough, FanDuel at 14.5. I mean, that's a vast difference between how PrizePicks and Underdog seeing this. So, yeah, maybe a little bit better bet on the sportsbook. So apologies for that. Again, I had the filter on wrong there. Over 1.5 receptions as well. I really don't mind that, but heavily favored to get the over there. So interesting to know. Maybe his fantasy score, if it's at like 3.5, maybe 4, we could even bet the over. I'd be fine with that. Another tight end that I kind of want to bet on is going to be Trey McBride. Basically a 50-50 split for him to get over 5.5 receptions. And I do want to call out that the matchup is really not great, but given the role that Trey McBride is expected to have, he is still, if you transfer the workload over for the matchup, he still should be able to get 6.4 receptions. That's how heavily involved he's been. If we look at his snaps, getting about 90% of the snaps over the last few games, that is pretty big. And so, yes, the matchup with Chicago, very tough. One of the toughest matchups for opposing tight ends, if not the toughest thus far. But he's so involved in the offense. He's like the most consistent tight end fantasy producer. I like the over here. I do. Even though it's about a 50-50 split, this is obviously a much better bet on one of the sports books, though, instead. And so actually one of my favorite bets is looking at Lad McConkey to get over 4.5 receptions. And if we look at it, guys, the average sportsbook line is definitely favoring the under here. So this is not going to be like a good EV bet. This is going to be one where you're going to get a slightly increased payout if you do it on something like Underdog. I would rather, honestly, if PrizePicks bumps him down to 4 receptions, that'd be the route that I would rather go. And so we look at it. Yeah, Lab McConkey right now, it's a 1.111x return here. I'm actually very confused by this line. I know Cleveland, again, a little bit more of a difficult matchup here, but he's just playing a lot of snaps. He's clearly the number one. And my favorite thing here, guys, he's getting manufactured touches where they're getting him about 2 to 3 receptions per game intentionally. The play design is for him. And so if we can increase the floor of prop bets like that for someone like Lad McConkey, he only really needs us to then get 2 receptions where it's, just based off a matchup or through play design or just natural progression. That's not that much to ask. And again, I know Cleveland's a difficult matchup, and I don't necessarily love the idea of going with J.K. Dobbins and Lad McConkey to get over the receptions in a tougher matchup. But at the same time, Lad McConkey's just playing a lot. And again, I think this is going to be a better bet here on one of the sports books where you can get the over at like plus 115. I would rather do that. But again, if this gets bumped down to 4 on PrizePicks, I'd be happy to bet that. And the reason I say that is because obviously the under is heavily favored there. And so that'd be the line that comes out. And so one player that I actually don't mind as well to, potentially have a good game is going to be looking at Noah Gray. He's been able to get this over in 4 straight games now. And again, we kind of look at what's happened there. Obviously, Rice getting injured, Isaiah Pacheco getting injured. He has, in a way, been the number 2 passing weapon in this offense. And you might look at his stats and say that's not true. But if you watch the games, he is involved in the offense a decent amount. Now, yes, they're getting Worthy involved. Obviously, Travis Kelce, the number 1 there. But he has Patrick Mahomes' trust. We see his snaps continue to go up and up. He is like the receiver number, again, not exactly true, but for the sake of this point, he is like the receiver number 2 in this offense, where he is continuously a part of the offensive game plan. Whereas Xavier Worthy last week got about 8 targets, was heavily involved in the offense, where heck, maybe Hardman gets a little bit more involved like he was a few weeks ago. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins is going. Justin Watson had himself a good game. The thing that's been a consistent thing happening is Noah Gray has been involved. And so I'm betting on that to still happen. I'm betting on him to still see around 60% of the snaps. And so I like that over there for him really across the board. If you guys want to bet it on PrizePicks or Underdog, by all means, go for it. We see the average line has this about 22.3. And so not a difference at all on PrizePicks or Underdog for that matter. Now, one bet that I like and the data also agrees with here on PrizePicks is going to be Jacoby Myers to get over his fantasy score. And so really, when these fantasy scores are being favored for the over, it tends to stick out to me a little bit more because, again, we are factoring in the likelihood for a touchdown to hit. Obviously, for a lot of players, that's not that likely. But he is someone that is the receiver number 1 here. He really has just taken over for Devontae Adams in this role when he's been healthy and active. And that's the biggest thing, is that he hasn't been healthy all too much lately. So I think people are just kind of forgetting about him this game against Cincy. Has a chance to be somewhat higher scoring. They're going to be playing from behind, so hopefully he has a few more easy receptions. And we look at it, guys, 7 targets, 9 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets, 5 targets going back to week 2. Don't really care about that again because Devontae Adams was there. But he has consistently gotten this over. And so it's kind of crazy. And then you factor in the chance that he could score a touchdown. I like this one. And so another one that I actually like is Jake Ferguson to get over 5.5 receptions. Again, this is a bet that you would actually, if he drops to 5 on PrizePicks, you'd rather bet there. Same thing on Underdog, but he's just heavily involved in the offense. Again, kind of like, well, he's basically the receiver number 2 in this offense. That's just how he's been involved, especially if Rico is not going to be active, who is a little bit of a passing threat. I am expecting him to be. Obviously, all reports are suggesting that he will be, but Jake Ferguson just heavily involved, playing, 80% of snaps when he needs to. But I do want to call it, it's not like a lock and load here. Against Detroit, obviously that game was a blowout. We can't take much away from that. Didn't play as many snaps. But 8 targets, 7 targets, 7 targets. He has been able to consistently get this over. But it's not going to be one where he vastly dominates this over. It's going to be he gets 6 receptions. That's how I see it going. And so that's where I think it's just a better kind of sportsbook bet rather than Underdog bet, where if you use it on Underdog, you're only getting the 1.1x payout increase, even though you're chasing a bet that doesn't have favorable odds. I mean, guys, this one has on average a almost 55% likelihood for the under to hit. And again, I'm just saying, I think this line's wrong. Let's take advantage of that. Let's bet this to gain an advantage. So let's go ahead and get into the bets of the day. But I do just remind you guys, if you guys want access to any of those tools that you saw in this video, head on over to 9to5sports.com. They're curated to you guys to make the best bets possible. You guys can either use it the way I just showed you guys, where I'm finding players that I want to bet on and find the best lines to bet on. You can also just sort it by where we are getting the best edge and kind of just blindly bet those. And that's going to be a good long-term profitable strategy for you as well. But we want to call it, the membership is $10 a month. Use promo code KEEPCASH and get 20% off your first 9 to 5 membership. Basically, you pay $8 for the first month, which is like a fifth of the price of most other companies that are doing the exact same thing. So take advantage of that, guys. Great deal out there for you. So let's go ahead and get into these bets for week 9. Crazy. And so getting to my favorite bets here for week 9 on PrizePicks, Trevor Lawrence get over 210.5 passing yards, more of a matchup thing, like the matchup with Philly. He has looked good as well. Obviously don't like the fact that he's going to be without Brian Thomas and potentially Gabe Davis, and also definitely going to be without Christian Kirk, but I think Parker Washington's going to step up and look good. If you want to stack Parker Washington with him as well, I'm fine with that. Trey McBride to get over 5.5 receptions. Again, not exactly a great bet going against Chicago, who has been tough against opposing defenses, but Trey McBride has been a focal point in this offense. He's consistently getting the targets. Just need to be quality targets. J.K. Dobbins get over 2.5 receptions, another one that I like, just because he has been heavily involved in the passing offense, has been able to consistently get this over. And we actually saw snap counts go up last week. Hopefully that continues. And then talk about snaps, we got Theo Johnson that's getting 90% of the snaps. If that role continues, I think he has a good chance to get this over. Maybe Washington really blows out New York, where New York is having to throw the football a little bit more against softer defense. That'd be pretty nice. So then looking at underdog, again, like with someone like Jake Ferguson, Ladd McConkey, these are prop bets where the payout's slightly increased. These are better bets on something like, well, sleeper if you're using it with a discount where the payout's going to be better. I do like Noah Gray a little bit better on underdog, where it's at 21.5 instead of 22.5. That can be the difference between it cash or not cashing. If you guys don't want to use Jalen McMillan for his lower receptions, that was a good EV bet when I had made this slip. We probably don't need to use that now because it's went down a little bit, but still not bad. And I do like DJ Moore to get over 4.5 receptions. That is more of a game script bet, and that's more just betting on hopefully Caleb Williams to have some time to throw the football. But guys, that's going to be all for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. Again, do just want to remind you guys, those bets that I just called out, not all of them were like great EV bets. Obviously, I like Jacoby Myers to get over his fantasy score as well. That's one that I could have included on the PrizePicks bet of the day. But obviously, we always want to be prioritizing the EV bets when possible. Those are bets where I like just in general for the week. That's kind of my early look here for week 9. We'll be coming out with a more concrete video, probably Saturday night or Sunday morning. So be on the lookout for that. That's going to be all, guys. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to this video. Comment your guys' favorite prop bet as well. Obviously, we can always help each other out here. Make sure to give a like and subscribe. If you guys want to access to any of the tools that you saw in this video, head on over to 9to5sports.com. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.